what's your emergency? 911, what's your emergency?
Be advised, Car 4 has control of the pursuit. Proceed with caution.
Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome. I hope you guys are all having a good Saturday night. Don't mind my hat. I don't normally wear hats, actually, but this is my new hat that's on my store. So I thought I would check it out, put it on. So there you go. I'm thinking I look like a dork, but oh well. I like the hat though. I hope everybody's good. Welcome to Behind the Crime Door for all that are new here. I am Kristen. I welcome you all. I hope that we have a great show tonight and that everyone remains respectful and kind in the comments and in the chat. Welcome, Lisa. I will introduce Aspen in just a minute. He is behind the crime door waiting for us. Hey, Hoosier. Good to see you. Hey, Thistle. How are you? Hi, CJK. Hey, Help Me, Rhonda. How are you? I love that song. Boy, it takes you back a few years. Hi, Melissa. How are you? I had to rush and eat my dinner. I was running late and I was too into the basketball game and wasn't paying attention to time. So I apologize, but I had to rush and finish my dinner. Hey, Sees Through All. How are you? Hey, Jill. Welcome. Good to have you always. Hi, Sharon. Good to see you. Hey, Ray Jones. How are you? Hi, Dave. How are you? I hope you are well. Hey, Mitzi. Welcome, my dear. Hello, Deb. How are you? I'm glad that you are back, but I bet you had a rude awakening last night, didn't you? Those storms were nasty. I tried to tell people, I was in a couple of live streams last night, and it was crazy. I was bouncing back and forth because I was afraid we were going to lose power. It was just a crazy day yesterday. My heart goes out to everyone who was in the path of those tornadoes. It started here about 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon and didn't settle down until about 2 o'clock in the morning. And then we started with the wind today. Hey, Thistle. Hey, Tech Death. So good you're here, my dear. Love the music. Hope everyone enjoys the music in my intro. That music is from Tech Death Hippie. And please make sure you check out his channel if you haven't. He's an amazing artist. Hey, Purdue. Always good to see you, my dear. Hey, JP. How are you? Good to see you. Hey, Derek. How are you?
Not too shabby. Thanks for asking.
Thank you. I'm glad you guys like it. Hey, Jamie. How are you? Welcome, my dear. So glad you're here. Hi, Maria. I'm glad you approve. Okay, good. Looks like we got a good crowd showing up. So I'm happy about that. Everybody is anxious, I'm sure, to listen to Aspen. Hey, JDR, how are you? Good to see you. Yeah, I think spring here in the Midwest woke up yesterday. Oh, wow, Dave. There was 3 deaths in Indiana, lots of damage, a lot of damage in Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Arkansas, Tennessee. I'm not sure about Kentucky, but possibly. It was just awful. Oh, Derek, I'm so glad to hear that. Oh, wow. Mitzi, I hadn't heard about that. Please make sure that you stay safe. These tornadoes are nothing to mess around with. Hey, country girl. Good to see you. So, well, guys, so I have Aspen Conner as my guest this evening. He is my dear friend. Some of you may know him from It's a Criming Shame. He was on It's a Criming Shame, or still is, with Sunny Justice, and also with Deb from True Crime Notebook. And Deb and Aspen have both ventured out on their own as creators and have their own channels now. And so you guys need to check them both out because they are amazing creators. They have some of the best, I think, content because they I don't want to sound like this, but I'm going to. They completely hold the same values in creating that I do when it comes to putting out content that is factual and they don't just run with things without thinking things through, which makes me really respect them as creators. And so they're wonderful people besides that. I can't say enough about both of them. I love them. And I'm really happy that he's joining us tonight. And I'm going to bring him on. And you guys better be nice to him, because you have to deal with me if you're not. Hey, Mike, how are you?
Thank you. That welcome was so nice. I don't know if I deserved it, but thank you.
You do, except when you're being bad.
I do like to be a little, I like to call it cheeky, but I like to be a little naughty sometimes.
It's okay. We all can tend to be that way. And that's one of the reasons why we love you.
Thank you.
I think it's the naughtiness that people find funny, But how are you? I mean, how's the weather your way? I know that you're on the East Coast, so.
Yeah, I mean, it was windy here today, but it was warm, and I think it's gonna be like 85 degrees this week. So.
Oh wow.
It's kind of fluctuated between 70s and 60s. So it's been like humid though already. So.
Well, you're really lucky, because
no storms.
It's been horrible here.
Yeah.
And we're not happy about it, but my heart goes out to everyone who lost loved ones and lost their homes and businesses. It's just terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Southern Illinois, and so it was, even just watching, there were a lot of people that were like live on TikTok last night and things. So I was watching people's coverage of the storms, and then I was talking to Deb a little bit to make sure they were okay, because I saw that tornado had gone through near, was it Sullivan?
Yeah, it was
in
Sullivan. Yeah, I jumped off of Sunny's live stream because things got crazy here, and I was watching. I use an app called Radar Omega, and I was looking at that and watching some storm chasers that had been in Illinois that had gone to Indiana, and I knew it was going to get worse over there. And I was just like, I wanted to warn people in Indiana that, hey, you guys need to be paying attention to the weather, because it was crazy.
Right. And then to see the I saw some news footage today from Arkansas, and that just looked, my heart just broke for those people.
I know.
And the people in Indiana and Iowa as well.
It's terrible. You don't expect it, and it comes. I mean, we do get warnings now, but even with that, it's so crazy how you see some of these houses standing and the ones next door are completely obliterated. And it's just like, it's just hit and miss. And it's just terrible.
You can get a little desensitized to it, I think, growing up in the Midwest and living in the Midwest, because, like most things, 90% of the time, nothing bad happens. You get the warnings and stuff, but when you see stuff like that, it really it does remind you that life is pretty fragile, and you have to
exactly
take for granted.
And that's absolutely for sure. Your whole background's different.
Yeah, I'm at my parents' house for the weekend.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense, because I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't look like where you normally are.
It's not. So you may hear a dog bark, or a 19-month-old who's bedtime now. So
that's awesome. Is that your niece?
Yeah. I've been trying to help out a couple days a week, and I usually come up on the weekends sometimes anyway. So I'm in my parents' guest room.
That's awesome. That's cool. I like the red. It's like
Thanks.
it matches my whole theme.
I picked it just for you.
I'm so sure you did. Thank you so much.
I did, actually.
Good. Well, thank you. Oh, Rhonda said she was in a tornado at the age of 6. Oh, yeah. You'll never forget that once you see one. My grandparents were when I was a sophomore in high school, and the only thing that saved them was an International Harvester plant that was across the street from where they lived, and everything else around them was destroyed.
Wow.
I will never forget the night we drove in there when in the dark, because they always seem to hit at night, and everything was it was crazy.
Was that in Illinois?
Mm-hmm. It was actually in Canton, Illinois. Yep. Which is about, I want to say 15 to 20 miles west of us here where I'm at. So, but yeah. So, are you looking forward to our discussion tonight? I thought that we would keep it, nothing really structured. I wanted us to talk about, I thought we could talk about Delphi and Idaho and maybe some of the other cases that I've been covering or some of the stuff that you've been covering too, whatever. I love all the TikToks that you are putting out.
Thank you.
You're the I don't know what you would call it. Is it the true crime trivia or just the?
Yeah, because I was reading some stuff about how to because I didn't really understand how to do shorts versus videos, and so I was like, that could be a fun thing to do, and is to put out a series of just little tidbits that I find interesting. So there's really no structure to them other than they're kind of a lot of it statistical data regarding true crime. So, and then the other day I did one for the definition of something that was, kind of in the news and I thought people would be interested in. So.
I love it. I think they're great. And, I've thought about doing a trivia night where we do maybe, true crime trivia. I think that might be a cool thing to do sometime, but,
absolutely.
There's just so much. And I've found a lot of the stuff that you've put out very interesting. So,
thanks.
But I'm trying to get more into shorts. I know YouTube's been pushing them for a while now. And, I know they're trying to compete with TikTok. So I think that that's probably why the whole big push to go to shorts has been. But I'm not one of these people I don't want to say I'm not tech savvy, but I'm not completely tech savvy.
Right.
So it took me a while to figure it out. I still do not understand TikTok. I'm on there, and my daughter and my son-in-law keep telling me you need to take your content. It's so good to TikTok. And I'm like, I don't know how to do that. So I don't even want to go there.
Right.
So
it can be intimidating, for anyone that's ever thought about starting a channel. I mean, having just done it in the last 6 months, it can be a little intimidating. I didn't know anything about making videos or monetization, all these things, that people talk about, and
right.
Or Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, because I'm not really a social media person either.
Right.
So that's all foreign to me, and I have to force myself to do it.
I have really, since I started my YouTube channel, my social footprint has gotten really, really small because I'm hardly ever on Facebook anymore.
Right.
I never followed true crime on Facebook. I did Facebook for my family and my extended family that's all over the world. That's how we all stay in contact with each other, is through Facebook. But yeah, I think when the political stuff got so crazy in the country, social media really turned me off.
Same.
I really have a big presence on Twitter, but that's the only thing. And I don't know, maybe one of these days I'll get excited about using this thing to create with, because I can't imagine creating anything with my phone. I'm serious.
Yeah. It's definitely a different format. It's definitely a different format, when you have to, trying to format, the size of things, because I remember the first time I tried to do a short, it was nothing was proportional. I was like, this is a disaster. And the same with videos, but well,
I got lucky, I guess. I don't know, but I was given the names of 3 or 4 different softwares in the very beginning to use to start, making videos and going live and all that kind of stuff. And I just fell into Canva. For whatever reason, Canva it was so easy to use to me. It was very straightforward. You can make videos, you can do shorts, you can do all different kinds of things. You can add your music, you can do all that. And I just thought that was really good. So that's all I've really ever used. My good friend from the Inquisitor, he keeps telling me that he wants me to start using DaVinci.
He's told me that as well.
I know. He's like, you so have to do it. He goes, I will help you. And I'm just like, okay. And I'm just got to find the time because I'm just like, but I've looked at it and it's a little overwhelming.
Well, I think I know we probably want to talk about the cases, but I will say for me, like, I know that I'm not a computer person. I'm not like a tech person. So, I don't feel bad about using a program that's more streamlined. It's one of the reasons I like StreamYard as opposed to like OBS or something, because I like the simple, easy to use formats. That's why I use Apple products as well, because they're,
That's me. I mean, I've always been, it's funny. I was alive for sure, but I mean, I was way before computers. So old school here. And when computers came around, I was always a Microsoft girl. Windows was my thing, and I was very good at Windows. And I've always been a Windows user until last fall when I upgraded my computer for my channel, and I ended up getting a MacBook Pro. Oh my gosh. I'm like, I'm going to go to finally go to an Apple when I've had an Apple phone forever.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this is going to be weird. And it's been weird.
It is. I'm sure it is. Yeah. I mean, I have my laptop's Apple, my phone's Apple, my iPad. I even have like the Apple keyboard on my iPad. I use everything. Now I have a desktop Apple that I just bought, that I got at Christmas.
Yeah. Well, the same. I mean, I guess when you have all your products and they're all by the same company, it makes a lot
Right.
more sense. But I've been learning as I go. I still haven't used iMovie. Somebody told me it's really good to make videos with iMovie. I haven't done that yet. I haven't even tried. So
right.
I don't
I
know.
usually, I myself use a combination of apps, like for when I make videos, but I usually use Canva and Wondershare the most. If you haven't used Wondershare, it's like Canva in a lot of ways, but strictly for videos. So
Oh,
cool.
cool.
A lot of times I'll take things from Canva and then I'll import them into Wondershare and finish them on there.
Awesome. Hey, Derek, thank you so much for your support. I so appreciate you.
Hey, Derek.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I would definitely like to. I'm always looking for new ideas. I've got I finally downloaded what's that new streaming program called Streamlabs, and I think Sunny uses it, and
Yeah.
I'm like,
Sunny's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to that stuff.
I know, and I'm just like so intimidated by it because I'm so used to StreamYard, and I've used StreamYard since the beginning, and I even did a class with StreamYard that lasted, I want to say we did it over 4 weeks. We met once a week, and I learned everything you could learn about it. It was all free.
Nice.
And it was very cool. And so I've just stayed there because I think I'm one of those people, once you're comfortable, you just stay there, But anyway, I think it's great. I like to find out new stuff from creators and how they're doing stuff, and anything you can help and share with. I think that's great. And Deb is just said, I know I saw in chat that she's the one who made you get on TikTok.
She did. Thank you, Deb.
So, and like I said, I love it. I love watching your guys' stuff. So, so what did you think about everything that happened this past week with Kegan Klein? What are your feelings on all of that? I know that you have some of the same feelings I do, but I haven't really got a chance to talk with you. So I thought maybe we could go through that.
Right. It's hard because I always try to use critical thinking, and I always try to prove myself wrong with anything that I believe before I put it out there or anything like that. And everything about Kegan Klein, which so much about Delphi is contradictory, but everything common sense wise and in my gut tells me that like there has to be some connection, that there has to be something there. But then, I start to tell myself, yeah, but, use your brain. This is what, you're being told. This is what's in court documents. It's what,
Right.
But then, like there's something on my shoulder that goes, yeah, but, nothing about Delphi has to be in those court documents. So, I don't want to, I don't want to I don't know. I think that Kegan Klein is a monster. I don't have to say allegedly anymore because he's been, he's pled guilty to what I consider monstrous charges and acts. But as far as his connection to Delphi, he did admit to creating the Anthony Shots account and using it. We know that Libby interacted with the Anthony Shots account. So at the least, there is a connection, even if it doesn't involve the crime. I mean,
Exactly.
the unaliving of the girls, if you will.
Well, we know for a fact that Anthony Shots had some sort of a relationship or interaction with the girls in some
Right.
fashion. We know that unless law enforcement was completely lying to him when they told him that he was the last to contact them, or that when law enforcement also told them that Libby was sort of enamored with
Right.
the Anthony Shots persona. So, with that being said, I agree with you on that. I also think one of the things I was thinking about today when I knew that we were going to be discussing this was looking back over 5 years, say, of this case. It's really easy to understand why people think the way they do about certain aspects of it, because
Absolutely.
we have had such a void of information from law enforcement. And I've said it forever on my channel that when there's a void of information, then we as human beings will fill that void with our own information. And
Right.
true crime,
silence leads to speculation.
Exactly. And in true crime, it's so true. I don't have a problem with speculation as long as you are making sure you are talking that way and telling people that this is all speculation and that it's not coming from law enforcement.
Right.
I even have trouble sometimes with these whole quote unquote sources or people using that as an excuse to put out whatever the heck they want to in the airwaves on a narrative. Oh, I have a source. Well, you can easily say that, but it sounds a little strange. Your sources must come from Mars, because some of the stuff we've heard over the years in Delphi, you have to kind of really go out on a.
And I'm sure this. It can be difficult because people do want to reach out. Which is incredible when people feel like they have something that might add to a story or information that they feel might be important to a story. But then as a creator, it's hard to then, be like, okay, someone's emailing me, someone's, emailing me or messaging me on Facebook that, they have information about, Kegan Klein or Richard Allen. So then it's the responsibility of the creator to, try to vet that information, try to get, proof of it. And I don't put anything out that I'm told by a source on, without, I usually don't put anything out until it's been confirmed by law enforcement. But I'll definitely look into it.
And that's, again, one of the reasons that I so highly respect you. Hey, Fig, so
Hey, Fig.
good to see you. Welcome. But yeah, no, I totally agree with that. One of the things that I wanted to bring up, I didn't talk about it in Thursday night on my live, and I wanted to, but I kind of ran out of time. I mean, we kind of had a great chat. I'm so glad you were in there.
Oh, thank you.
It was just like a great chat we had going on. But one of the things I wanted to bring up was Ken Maines did a video on Thursday, put it out, I believe, on Thursday or maybe Wednesday night, but I think it was Thursday morning. And it's a rant, a 23-minute rant about true crime, the true crime community, and what is going on in it, to the point that he has decided to no longer cover current cases. He is over the community. He said the community is in his mind toxic. It has so much misinformation and crazy that he can't deal with the comments, the crazy people that he's constantly having to ban to keep out of his live streams and stuff. I mean, for Ken to come out and say that, and I'm like, Ken Maines is he's got it going on. I mean, I guess there's people that may not like him, but I do, and I respect him.
Right.
You know, I just do. He was he's helped so much on cold cases, but one of the things that I think you have to look at him as a, you know, he was a detective and an undercover cop for so long. He knows about how cases work, and you know, I don't know, it's just, I just thought it was very interesting. So I would suggest that everyone go listen to what he had to say about true crime, because I was kind of floored. And he apologized at the end and said, you know, he was sorry that he went off on this rant, but it was really starting to, you know, get to him. And I kind of can see how that, you know, kind of can happen. But I don't know if he was specifically speaking of the Delphi community or not. But I can tell you that I heard early on when I came to YouTube a year ago, you know, it's not just Delphi. People were telling me, oh, if you think the Delphi community is crazy, go over to Summer Wells's case and sit on, you know, sit over there for a while. And I was just like, this is crazy. Where do these people come from, and why do we have so many trolls and people that are just wanting to create you know, nonsense? I still see people out there putting out content, throwing Kelsey under the bus.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
know,
It's, you know, and you know, sometimes I go back and forth because I think it's so awful, and then other times it's that I have to laugh at how absurd and ridiculous it is. That I'm like, you know, how could anyone believe this stuff? And if they do, then they should probably stay over on channels like that, because they don't think the way I do, and they don't, you know, they don't use information in the same way I do. So
same thing, you know. Steffa says Chris Watts is the craziest community that she's a part of, Watts Island. You know, I so get how that can be, and I it's just, I don't know. I don't know what we can do to make it better, but I just try to stick in my lane and do the whole fact-based reporting of these cases. And I don't, like I said, I don't mind speculating, and I don't mind doing that as long as we're talking about the fact that you've got to use critical thinking when you're speculating. You can't just pull somebody out of the hat and put them there on the bridge in Delphi and say, this is bridge guy, when there's no evidence to put him there. Nothing that places him there. How can you even begin to start being an investigator and doing that? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And, you know, I'll even, you know, I think it's interesting too, because I was told the same thing when I started coming on to YouTube. And I knew nothing about YouTube, like the true crime community on YouTube. Like I literally couldn't find, it was, you know, it was January of 2022, and I was like, oh, you know, I haven't seen an update about Delphi lately. And so, you know, I went to, like, you know, Google and was looking up stuff, because Anthony Shot stuff had come out in December of 2021, and there really was not a lot of updates after that in the main news. And so someone was like, oh, go to YouTube and just type in Delphi. And so that's what I did. And Sunny's channel came up, which is, you know, kind of how, and I was like, huh, who is this? And then I started to learn a lot more about YouTube, but people told me the same thing. They're like, you know, be careful, because, you know, you know, and I had to learn, I've learned pretty quickly that, you know, there's definitely a difference between legitimate creators and creators that thrive off of drama. And that's what the whole channel's based on. And, you know, it can be easy to get sucked into that a little bit, even if you don't mean to. And so to stay away from it is the best course of action, I think. But if you think YouTube's crazy, TikTok is like a whole nother level of crazy.
I don't even know if I could stomach that, because coming from Reddit, you know, I started with my true crime stuff on Reddit. I started my own Delphi's sub on Reddit, Delphi's Daughters.
Yeah.
And I started that because the Libby and Abby sub became so toxic and so crazy, I couldn't handle it anymore. I was like, people were blaming the families and were being allowed to, and they were being allowed to drag them through the mud. And I was just like, this is not this isn't cool. I don't want to be a part of this community. And that's why I did it. But I mean, you talk about some crazy people over on
Right.
Reddit. And it's so funny how the Reddit people hate the YouTubers and the YouTubers hate the Reddit people. I never realized that there was such this drama between social media platforms.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm not sure. You know, I don't have a huge presence on Reddit, so I mean, I'll look at it occasionally. A friend of mine is a moderator for one of the big Delphi channels, and so I kind of vet information through him sometimes if I do read it on Reddit. But you know, I do want to say really quickly, because to go back to Kegan Klein. You know, if you remember when the Anthony Shots information came out in December of 2021,
Yep.
the line that they gave, I mean, they gave the Abby and Libby tip line was the number that they asked for information. And I mean, Kegan Klein had been in jail already at that point for over a year. So there was no threat to the community as far as Kegan Klein was concerned at that point. So clearly at that point, law enforcement had evidence that they believed linked him to some aspect of Libby and Abby. And, you know, most likely it was just the catfishing on the Anthony Shots account. But, you know, so, I mean, I do think, you know, it's important that, you know, clearly there is a connection, but is that the extent of it?
Because see, when I look back on December, when we, you know, we were all sitting around, I can still picture where I was sitting the night that broke, and I know where I was sitting. I know that I got the notification that it had been placed out on YouTube, and I'm like, oh my Lord. I mean, literally, I was losing my mind. I couldn't believe it. And I was rushing around, I think like many of us did. And it wasn't until the interrogation came out and I started looking at that and realizing that the interrogation took place in August of 2020.
Yep.
And we were looking at that in the early months of March of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And or I'm sorry, 2022. And so this was old. This information was old. And I'm like, I didn't really pay that close of attention to it as a creator. I just kind of ran with it. I was like, oh my gosh, you know, this is big, this is huge, this is whatever. And I think one of the things that happened was I didn't pay attention to the fact that the information in the interrogation was old news. They had already had this information. They'd already talked to him, and probably multiple times since.
Oh.
And when they put out their blurb in December, it wasn't about Kegan Klein. It was about Anthony Shots and
Right.
who had interacted with that profile. They weren't looking for information from the public on Kegan Klein, because in my opinion, they would have said his name. There was no reason for them not to. He was incarcerated and had been for a year and a half. So I was like, as I started to go back and look at that over the next months, I started realizing that maybe this isn't what we think it is. And maybe we have read a lot into this void of information and we filled it, because there's a lot of things that are red flags when it comes to the Kleins for me, especially the whole trip to Vegas and what they were searching for in Vegas, like how long DNA remains on a body and all kinds of things like that. It makes you, as a person who's got an investigatory mind, think that's odd. That's a red flag for me. Why would they be doing that? So I can see why people are on that wagon and think that they are certainly involved in this murder. But the more I thought about it, the more I think about it is, and what I try to say is, they've had 6 years to arrest Kegan and Tony. They have known since February of 2017 that these guys were, you know, doing what they've been charged, or what, at least with what Kegan's been charged with. And from what we know, they know somebody else in the house was also communicating with young girls.
Right. And when you look at that, when you reread that interrogation now, because I mean, like you said, that interrogation was dated August of 2020. I mean, and they pretty much verbatim say in the interrogation, we don't believe you killed, like you committed this crime. We think you know who did. So I mean, they clearly at that point, and that was a year and almost half before the Anthony shots public information was released. I mean, so at that point, law enforcement had already concluded in their mind that he was not physically responsible for the crime, but that and so with how much of that interrogation was them convinced that it might be someone else in his house, and putting information out, or putting information to him to get the response they were looking for, or to get a response they were looking for, because maybe they couldn't find information about anyone else that they could corroborate. Right.
And I think what people in general forget is that in an interrogation situation, law enforcement lies all the time. They can say pretty much anything they want to in an interrogation, and they use that to get confessions.
Mm-hmm.
They use it to get information from, they will pit one person against the other. They will tell one person that this person's flipped on you, and then they'll go in and talk to the other person and say, that person's flipped on you. And, I just watched an interrogation this week where they actually walked in and told the suspect that they had him on videotape, and they didn't say it verbatim with words. They brought in a VHS tape that had on the side of it, it had the name of where this was. And he knew, he couldn't take his eyes off of that tape the whole time they were talking to him, because they knew, or he knew, oh my God, they have me on tape, even though they didn't. They did not.
That's why sometimes they'll even for the optics of it, they'll even have someone, waiting in the hall when they bring someone else that's involved, or that they suspect to be involved, through to interview them, so that the person that they're getting ready to interview can see their friend or whoever it is and watch them walk into the room, and then they have no idea what's happening in there. So then when they go into their interview, the police already have a leg up because that person's been thrown off their balance, and then if police say, oh, well, we're getting a lot of information from, your friend or whoever, it's, the human mind is going to, of course, start to lose security a little bit.
The whole thing with Kegan turning everything over to them in February of 2017 when they did the search of his house, but holding back the iPhone, the iPhone 5C, that always bothered me too, because I was like, what's on that phone that he didn't want them to see? What was on that phone that he was worried about them seeing? And you have to go back and wonder, what was that? Was it the chat programs that he ended up deleting? Was there information on there that he knew that they were possibly looking at him as a suspect in a double homicide, and he wasn't guilty? And he was like, oh my God, I've talked to them though. I've had interaction with them, and they're going to think it's me. I've gone back to that and flipped that around in my head, thinking that's very possible.
Absolutely. Because you have to remember, he didn't, I'm sure he didn't want them to have his other devices, but he voluntarily let them take his devices that contained horrific material on them.
Yes.
He had no problem with that. There were, it was in his charges that he pled guilty to, that there were, videos on there of things with girls under the age of 10 or 12 or 11. And what was on that iPhone 5C that he deleted the Meet Me app, he deleted Instagram, and he deleted Snapchat. We know that from the probable cause affidavit, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was on there? Because it wasn't just the CP.
No.
Because he handed all that over to the police.
Exactly. And that's what always made me wonder about what the heck was he trying to keep from them. And it doesn't say much for whoever did that search of that house. I believe that there was some kind of negligence going on there, because How could they have not found that phone? Where was it? You know, why would they not have been able to find it?
Well, I was being cheeky, but I did say, well, between the two of them, there's a lot of body circumference they could have hidden it on.
Yeah, there you go. So, I mean, that's funny. Especially when you stop and think about it. But yeah, you know, it makes you wonder why they didn't find the phone right away. But I don't know. I just go back and forth with it. After everything has come out with Richard Allen, I'm really not on that huge bandwagon anymore that the Kleins were involved in this murder. Now,
Right.
whether or not they have some sort of involvement with social media, as far as they, you know, they were catfishing the girls or talking to them or getting pictures from them or whatever, that may very, very well be true.
Yeah.
But as far as them, you know, being involved in what happened that day at the bridge, I'm just not feeling it anymore. I'm just not.
I honestly, I've never really thought Kegan, you know, one, I don't think he physically probably could carry it out. But two, I've never really felt that from him. And I think that if there's a connection between Kegan and Allen, I don't think that it was probably in real life. I think that it would have been online. I think that, you know, it's speculation on my part, but I think that, you know, the most likely scenario, if they do know each other, would be that they might have catfished each other, you know, because, you know, it's common, especially, you know, we use the name Emily Ann, and it's common, you know, for pedos to, you know, use girls' names and pretend to be a young girl and to talk to another one. And so we already heard in that interrogation that Kegan was talking to other adult men thinking they were young girls. So, you know, it's not out of the realm of possibility that he might have met Allen that way somehow. But I don't think that he had any part in planning or taking part in the girls' deaths outside of maybe facilitating the meetup. And I don't even think he knew what that was going to be for.
Yeah,
or what Allen might have had in mind.
I think that, you know, we don't know enough. I was talking to Maria about this the other day. There's just so much that we still don't know, that are still questions that are unanswered, that until we know those and can really get what transpired there, we're not going to be able to put all those pieces together. Right. I think that it's very possible that, like I said, that they had nothing to do with it, and I wouldn't be surprised if they are somehow involved. Right. I'm never going to die on a hill for a POI. No. Never.
I've never had one. I never had one until Richard Allen.
Yeah, me either. And like I said,
I immediately was like, yeah, he's PG.
Oh, when I saw him that day, that the picture, I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. You know how they say when you look at a sketch that it's not a photograph of someone, but when you looked at that sketch and you looked at his photograph, it was like, oh my God, that's him. And then when you see the body type, you see him. I can't unsee it. I mean, it's just like, it's right there. I don't know how you cannot see it. Then after that, when he places himself on the bridge, you know, and even in the clothes, the same clothes and everything, he's really made it hard for the defense.
3 times he did. He spoke to investigators 3 times before he was arrested.
Yes. And it's just like, man, you know, what's he trying to say here? Is he really trying to come clean without coming clean, or what? I don't know. It's but yeah, I definitely feel he's bridge guy for sure.
Absolutely. Delphi would be, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Delphi, I mean, is, you know, sadly, it's an easy case to beat your head against the wall with, because, you know, like I said, either Kegan or Kegan is involved somewhere, you know, in this, or he's the most unlucky, you know, POS in the world. Because, you know, what's the coincidence that, you know, you're catfishing a girl, and then, you know, according to police, you're one of the last people to have communication with her, and then another monster comes and does what Richard Allen did. The coincidence is just so hard to wrap your mind around without there being a connection. And then you fast forward to the Wabash River search, and then he sat in the Miami County Jail for 2.5 years, and then during the Wabash River search, ISP took over custody of him. Took him out of Miami County Jail, took him to a different facility for a day, and then brought him back. The search ended like not long after that at all, and then 5 charges were dropped off of his. All in like a week and a half.
Right. And it's like, so I mean, like, I know it's mind blowing. It makes you really wonder, what's going on here. But I'm serious. I've heard people, and I know you probably have heard the same rumors that, that the search had nothing to do with Delphi. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how we would know for sure, because we've got no law enforcement corroborating any of it.
I was told by a source. I'm kidding.
Yeah. Well, maybe you're not the murder sheet, but sorry. I try not to bring them up too much anymore, but I don't know how you can keep from it, especially with everything that we went through last year. Yeah. But
I like Kevin and I like Kevin and Anya actually on a personal level. I don't watch a lot of other creators stuff, but so I don't watch all of their stuff or listen to their stuff. But I've spoken to them several times, and I like them both as people. I think I had them on my show, and I in the very early, like in March of last year, and I found them very personable people.
But after what happened with someone who I knew was a source of information about Kegan last summer, that went to just a couple of ex-law enforcement people, myself and one other person, and went to them with the information and said, please don't put it out. And then they did. That was when I lost my respect for them at that point. They put her in danger, and I will never understand why they did what they did when they were asked not to. And they actually have come out and said that didn't happen, and I know better because I was involved in it. So I do know better. But anyway, with that being said, when you're a journalist, you should know better. You don't burn your sources. When your sources tell you this is off the record, or please do not put my information out there. She was just trying to get a direction from them on what she should do, or where she should go with the information that she had. And I believe that she was in danger because of what she did know at the time. Now, come to find out, everything that was said and everything that she knew, turns out it was all from a pathological liar.
Yep.
So, we have to all take things with a grain of salt. And I believe that Kegan was using a lot of people. I believe that he was telling a lot of things to people to benefit him and only him. He wanted money. He needed money so that he could survive in jail. And that's exactly what he was doing when he was telling these people all of these things. I keep hearing people talking about, well, Kegan searched for the marathon station. Law enforcement has never told us that.
Exactly. That only came from...
never told us that Kegan Klein searched the marathon gas station in Delphi the day of the murders.
Right. Same with the red Jeep thing. Granted, I do know for a fact that he did say that to someone.
I do too. I know.
I've seen the chirp, but so I know that he said it to someone, but but that never meant it was true.
No.
And that's and that's hard, and that's one of the reasons when someone tells me something that I can't prove from another way, because like I was told stuff. I was told stuff before the Richard Allen PCA came out, and it was the stuff that was in it was word for word what I have in my messages and emails. And I didn't tell anyone about what but I mean, when like the looking at fish, and I had it almost a month before, word for word. But I mean, I couldn't corroborate that with anyone, so I didn't put it out there. Now I kind of wish I had.
I mean, he's, so I don't believe half of what he says. He was throwing his dad completely under the bus, and that was kind of odd in so many different ways. And then I don't know, it's just, he's not a good person in any way, shape, or form, besides all the horrible crimes that he's committed against children. Besides all of that, he's not a good person. So where do you go when you're trying to deal with this pathological liar? I mean, if we're having trouble, can you imagine about what law enforcement is doing when they're sitting there in front of him trying to figure out what's true and what isn't when he's talking to them or telling them something? Steph, it was the murder sheet, I believe, that put out the marathon search.
Right.
Yeah, that was one of their sources that said that. And like I said, and then, the whole red Jeep that, him and his dad were in the red Jeep that day. And so I think one of the other things that people tend to forget, and it's old school and people talk about it, but once something is said over and over and repeated by many people the same over and over again, it becomes true.
Like the dog walking lady?
Pardon me?
Like the whole dog walking lady story.
Yes. Yeah, the whole dog walker story. It was said so much over and over again that it just became part of the timeline that this person happened. This person, I'm still sitting here going, where is law enforcement talking about the McCains? There is no law enforcement has not said anything about them being on the trail that day.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying anything. I mean, I know that we've got Becky coming forward and saying this is what was told to her from, from Derek. And I'm not questioning any of that. All I'm saying is that we have no law enforcement verification of any of these things. The whole Cheyenne story, the whole Daniel Pearson story.
Right. I mean, all we have is, which you can take either way, is we have and other witnesses. Because if you remember in the affidavit for Alan, there is one part where they say and other witnesses at the trial that day. So it's kind of a blanket, thing where they didn't include them, by name or by description in the affidavit. But I'm like, so now people can use that to say someone wasn't there, or they can use it to say someone was there.
Right.
So.
And I, and it is possible that someone was putting out false information on purpose.
Right.
It wouldn't put it past me that if law enforcement was doing that for a reason, and it wouldn't put it past me if it was Richard Allen. I know people don't think that criminals are smart or whatever, but this guy, if it turns out that he truly, is what we think he is, because obviously he's innocent until proven guilty. But if it comes out that he truly is, he has had the ability to watch every single thing for 6 years that's happened on social media in this case. There came a point where he thought, I'm never going to get caught, that they aren't looking at me. They don't have a clue about me. Even though there's people out there that believe that the change of direction press conference in 2019 is all about Richard Allen.
I don't believe that, but
I don't believe that either.
I
But
believe, you know,
I think
I
that they
personally,
were
okay.
just as shocked. Go ahead. Tell me
No,
what you
I was, my heart always, I mean, I know you feel the same way about the families. And so,
Oh God.
and I think that, because I think that anything that, that Becky or any of the family members have said publicly, I believe that that's absolutely what they believe or what they've been told, so anything that doesn't line up, with something else, which is usually nominal, but I don't think that one of the family is lying about anything. I just think that, they might have a belief that isn't, what's 100% factual later. I mean, when I think of Becky talking about how they were told that the social media didn't play a part in this for so long, and then they were as shocked as everyone else, and they were told an hour before that press conference.
Exactly.
And I personally believe that law enforcement interviewed Kegan Klein on like the 25th of February 2017. I think in that mind they already had their sights on Ron Logan, and I believe that personally I believe that the Ron Logan angle to the investigation is what delayed the case the first 2 years, and I think when they finally realized that Ron Logan had nothing to do with it, and I believe that he had nothing to do with it.
So do I.
That I think that's when they switched directions. And then, granted, then there's been several years since then, but to me, that's what that whole new direction presser was about. Because I think it's when they finally realized Ron Logan's not the guy.
I think what bothered me and made me think that possibly they may very well have been on to Richard Allen was because the way they stated when Doug Carter's talking at that 2019 press conference, he is very, very specific, and to the murderer, who may very well be in this room. He didn't have a whole backdrop of people behind him during that press conference when he was talking about that. A lot of the investigators and the detectives were at the back of the room. Right. And I thought it was very interesting the way he went, around the room, basically looking and saying, you could be in this room, you could be watching. It made me really believe at the time that they knew he was local. They knew it for a fact at this point in time, what, we've been duped. This guy, we didn't, we thought you were a witness all along. We thought you were possibly maybe even a searcher. We don't know if he was out there pretending to be a searcher that day. We don't know any of that yet. Even though his name doesn't seem to be on the search list, we've all looked. We don't know if he was out there pretending to be a searcher. And if they thought, even if he wasn't and just was pretending to be a witness, and they figured it out, that to me would also explain why he said, you never thought we would go back to, and change directions, but we have. And I totally agree with you that in the very beginning, especially that first 15 to 18 months, they had their eyes set on Ron Logan. I think they did, as far as the FBI handed him the file and said, this is your guy, you do with it as you want, because I think there was a lot of infighting going on in Carroll County between ISP, Carroll County, and the FBI. Carroll County said, no, we know Ron Logan. This isn't Ron Logan. We've dealt with him for years. We know who Ron Logan is. He's a drunk, he's this, he's that, but this isn't Ron Logan. But I think that was a lot that was happening there with that dynamic. And finally, something happened that made them finally realize this isn't Logan. And they let him out of jail and went a different direction.
Right. But I think that's probably the reason, though, that there were a number of things that got overlooked in the beginning of this investigation, such as Richard Allen coming forward, and talking to, such as the Anthony Shots information. Because remember, they talked to, Kegan Klein in February of 2017, and then he didn't get arrested for 3 years.
Exactly.
they
And
clearly
have
had enough to arrest
explain
him for what he now pled guilty to, but
and at some
yeah.
point they're going to have to explain why.
I hope.
What was it that made them? Was it complete? And was it just an error that they
Right.
just decided not to overlook that, or did somebody just, what was that all about? Why did you go there so quickly after the murders? Find all this information and three. I mean, I know it takes a while to get digital forensic back. Some
Right.
of these companies you have to fight in court to get them to release information on their subscribers, whether it be TikTok or what's that app? What I'm talking
Instagram,
about.
or there was Meet Me.
The Snapchat.
Yeah, Snapchat.
And if they have to deal with
Ick.
foreign companies, it's even worse.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm just, when I go back to the beginning of that, I'm just like, Richard Allen came forward, and for whatever reason, I think it was a complete misstep. I think that whoever talked to him originally put on there that he needed to be followed up on, even though it said to follow up with the young girls. That was what was written, not about him. And again, it could be merely that person who talked to him knew him because of interacting with him, because of his job, and be like, this guy's fine. He's a nice guy. He works at the local CVS. He does our prescriptions. This guy isn't a killer. And
Yeah. I don't think he was in the pharmacy yet then, but
yeah, but completely thought that he was okay. That's possible in a small town too, that they wouldn't take a look at him, or that person didn't
Absolutely.
take a look at him and just said, this is this guy, which again, in police work, that's a complete error in judgment.
I mean, I hate to even think that, but imagine how many times Becky Patty has been in that CVS in the past 6 years.
Oh, I know.
And he was standing behind that prescription counter.
Yep.
Because, she didn't know who he was probably, but for sure he knew exactly who she was and watched every move she made while she was in that store.
I also think about Anna, because, Anna was tending bar and working in, serving food and stuff. And I'm like, he was going there, he was, and he is seeing her on a regular basis, sometimes once or twice a week.
Well, Anna never worked at JC's though, right?
I don't think he worked at. Wait a minute.
Yeah, she worked at a different one because
she didn't work at JC's, but I think that he probably went to the other bar.
Yeah,
I think.
And I know that I was told by a source. No, I won't say source. I was told by a friend of Anna's that the only time she ever really has hung out at JC's was there was I think a friend of hers that she was talking to for a minute at one point, and that was about, like the only time she would ever go there. So I don't know if I don't think Anna had any idea who Richard Allen was.
Oh no, but he did.
He knew who she
was.
And he knew Becky's sister. He knew who Becky's sister was.
And so, Jamie, Richard Allen was on a pool league with his wife, and they played pool twice a week. I just think that it's I mean, it makes him even more horrific that he would be able to look them in the eye, see them, and go on about living life knowing what he knew.
Right. Well, Tara said that he developed the pictures for the memory board.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like,
it's like, Tara goes in there to drop off the film, the pictures, to have the pictures made. And, he's like, oh, we're not going to charge you. And I'm just like, you stop and think about how that must make her feel now, knowing what she now knows.
Right. Although they could have spent every day going every single place they went thinking, is the person that did this here? So I mean, they could easily have had that suspicion on everyone.
Yeah. No, for sure. I don't know if she did or not, Dave, but I don't think so. Everything tells me no, but if you remember one of the very last interviews that Anna gave right before the 6th anniversary, she said it will turn out, she said one of her worst fears is that it's going to turn out to be someone that we know. Or that, you know, and even if it's somebody that we know, someone that they interacted with, which is like what Aspen just said, just by simply going to the CVS, you know, and seeing this person all the time. Even though she didn't know him, she may have had interaction with him at the store.
Right.
So, it's just terrible.
Delphi's a small town, you know.
It is a small town, and
you know, like I said, a lot of people hang out. They're not, and especially there aren't. I think there are 2 bars in Delphi, or there were at the time.
right.
You know, so I mean, you know, chances are that people have crossed paths without even knowing it. You know, they are gonna cross paths when you live in a small town like that, and there's not much to do in that town. And you don't want to have to drive to Lafayette, or you don't want to have to drive to Logansport, or, you know, another larger city. You're going to go to the places, the local watering holes, whatever. Right.
And just like if you're going to go in for coffee or whatever, you don't necessarily have to go in to have a beer.
Right. Some people go to sing karaoke or play pool, you know, I mean.
Exactly.
I mean, I have a picture, I know of Becky's sister with, you know, Kathy Allen. And, you know, they didn't know who that was, but, you know, it's a small town. People know each other.
Yep. And so it's, yeah, there's going to be links. They're going to come out. I think it's interesting that we're not hearing much about any of that. It's like he's almost become, it's hard to know anything really about Richard Allen. You know, we've heard some things, but it's like they clamped down on his social media so quickly.
If he had much.
Yeah, like I said, I think he didn't. I think he was laying low. He may very well have been on social media, but not as himself.
Right. Absolutely. That's what I believe.
Yeah, I believe he was watching everything. Who wouldn't? I mean, you would want to know what everybody's talking about. And like I said, with all of the conversations being about all these other people, he was thinking he was flying high.
Right.
So I'm assuming he was really, really shocked when they came calling last fall.
Right.
You know, but what was your thoughts with everything that happened with Ray Hanisch? I'm sure that you probably were glad to see that finally came about, as I was.
Absolutely. And you know, I mean, it kind of took me by surprise. One, because I just didn't expect the timing of it. And I was always, you know, kind of resolved to the fact that, you know, Ray might not get the justice that he deserved because of the way that everything was handled at the time. So, I mean, I was, you know, I was really emotional. It made me really happy. You know, and then having, you know, gotten to know some of his family that, you know, has been emotional too. Because Garrett Curtis is disgusting. I mean, what a vile human being.
You know, just a horrific person. And, you know, I listened twice. I went through them twice, all of Open Secret's interviews with him, and listening to him and him talk and stuff. And I was like, you can just hear how cold and calculating he is through just that, not to mention what he did, you know, to Nicole Bowen and how that all played out. He's cold-blooded and he has no remorse, as far as I'm concerned, in his bone.
And I believe had he not been caught, I believe he would have absolutely continued to take people's lives.
Oh, I do too. I firmly believe that, and he can blame drugs all he wants to, but you still have a choice to take someone's life.
Right.
I hate it when people use that as an excuse. You know, that I was drunk or that I was out of my mind and whatever.
It'll be interesting to see what because I think his court date is this week, I believe. It'll be interesting to see what he has to say. Because I don't really see. I mean, sadly, I don't see any benefit to him if he pleads guilty, because he's already serving a 55-year sentence for Nicole Bowen's murder, which the anniversary was just on the 30th, the 4-year anniversary of. So he really doesn't have anything to lose by going to trial.
No.
Well, so I don't envision him pleading guilty, but we'll see.
Yeah, I knowing him, anything's possible. I don't see him really saying that he did it. I just don't. He would have said it by now.
Right, and he'll try to point the finger at Ashley Garth or someone else in his little circle of delinquents.
Yeah, for sure. But again, all of these nasty characters that have come up, because of the Delphi case. Right. All of these.
Well, there's another, odd coincidence. You've got Garrett Kurtz, who was a lot of people's early POI. I was unaware of who Garrett Kurtz was until like last year. But a lot of people thought Garrett Kurtz was a viable suspect early on. And, here this horrible person that's killed 2 people, admittedly was really good friends with a cousin of Libby's. And then the bodies are found on an incredible family friend of his property. It's
exactly.
It's just another one of those like weird coincidences that
because
I've come to expect in this case.
Well, it's so bizarre because there for a long time in Delphi, when Garrett Kurtz came about, when people started talking about him, it was all believed, or the theory was the girls happened upon them doing meth or selling it, smoking it, or making it down underneath the bridge. And there has been many, many rumors out there that float that happens down there. Right. And I know that, there's been video of that was asked of Becky about, and she's like, that doesn't happen down there. And I'm just like, well, I don't know, but I mean, we've got people saying that it does, but there were people that thought that could be why Garrett Kurtz would have been involved in this. And then you've got the whole other side of it where it came out that it was, he stated that there was, or was it him or was it Ashley that said, Garth, that said there was a video running around of the girl's murder, and that they had seen it.
It was, I believe it was Nick Edwards told Ashley Garth, but I'm like, oh, and I've seen the messages where they said it, but they're criminal drug addict liars. So you don't know if they're telling you the truth. You don't know
they're spreading
coming out of their mouth.
Again, to me, they just spread crap that they may think might benefit them, or make it seem like they may know something that they don't.
Right.
But I'm really happy that at least law enforcement decided to pursue justice.
It shows what a new prosecutor can do. I mean, just something as simple as the old prosecutor went out and a new prosecutor came in and decided that, that Ray's case was worth his time. Mm-hmm. And, because I have no problem saying the prosecutor that was there before that, he basically said, oh, there's no need to, what he told Ray's family was that, allegedly was that there's no need to pursue this because he's already in jail for Nicole's murder.
Right. And
so your family member doesn't need justice.
And maybe all that's doing is saving the county money,
of course,
from having to prosecute him. But that's not justice for Ray.
And save the embarrassment that they didn't treat Ray's apartment as a crime scene.
Yeah, exactly. And I think
they didn't notice his TV and car were missing.
Right.
Sorry.
No, it's the truth. I mean, when you stop and think of all of the shoddy police work in this area of Indiana, it's mind-boggling because there's enough of it in that case. I think there was some shoddy stuff done in the Delphi case. I think there's horrifically shoddy stuff done in Flora. It makes you really wonder, is it because of lack of experience and they just don't have these types of crimes? Or is it simply because they're lazy and they don't want to do the work?
Right.
Or is it something more? I mean,
I don't
it's
know.
really crazy.
Right, because just like Delphi, just like Richard Allen, I mean, Flint Farmer, who's getting ready to go on trial for Karina McCurkin's murder.
Yep.
They had the information that the grand jury indicted him on the week she went missing. And so for over 6 years, her family had no, they just recovered her remains last year.
Right.
And so that family didn't know where she was, but what happened to her allegedly is they had that information the week she went missing.
Right. And her mother knew that she was with him.
Yeah.
So, they have the mother telling them, you need to look at this guy because my daughter was with him. And
Jerry McCurkin went there herself being like, you need to go look at this.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And, to me, it just goes again to say, and I just hate to say it, that, some of these cops, they look at these marginalized type of victims or people and they don't care. And I hate having to say that, but I believe it in her case. And I also believe it in Flora.
And Ray's.
I'm angry. I'm angry over Flora. The girls need justice.
Yeah, they do.
Their case is important. It's just as important as everyone else's. And I feel that the silence by law enforcement, we're going to be 7 years in November, and they haven't really said much of anything about Flora in over 4 years. And I'm like, silence, what are you doing? Yeah. Why did they spend $38,000 to suppress a 911 tape? What's on that tape that they don't want the public to see or hear?
Absolutely. I agree. I agree with you 100%.
I mean, that just makes me so mad. And I'm like, I firmly believe that it's negligence. That's what they don't want us to hear. They don't want us to hear the fact that, we saw part of it on the dash cam video footage from Drew Yoder's car when he goes back to the fire department, the firehouse, to get his gear so he can go back in the house a second time. And you hear him hollering at these firefighters saying, man, what are you doing? We have people in the house dying. They were just sitting around.
Yeah. And, and he's someone, I don't know, he is someone that he kind of he was under a lot of suspicion from a lot of people on, on social media and on YouTube and stuff, in the years since Flora happened. And, hopefully anyone that watched that body cam footage, which was not easy to watch, but anyone that watched that hopefully can change their opinion of when it comes to Drew Yoder as far as having any involvement in that fire happening. Because, he was, in my opinion, desperately trying to go in there and save
absolutely.
the girls.
Oh, absolutely. I don't believe for 1 second that he didn't want to save the girls and get to them. He tried, but my first question is, why the hell did he go inside and why didn't he grab a ladder and go up to their window? That's going to bug me forever.
Probably him too.
And him, he's probably kicking himself. But I'm like, where were the neighbors? All these people were standing around watching this house burn, listening to these young girls screaming bloody murders for someone to help them. You can't tell me that there wasn't a ladder in somebody's garage that they could have put up to that window to try to get those girls out through the window. And where was the ladder from the fire department? Well, the fire department wasn't there. And that's the thing. It just breaks it's Jamie's right. It just breaks your heart to think about what didn't happen. And I'm just over it.
I have trouble even covering Flora sometimes, mainly because of how just unfair it is and how and how heartbreaking it is. And really, especially since the body cam footage came out, I really kind of almost shy away from it a little bit because they deserve justice so much. And, but I'm like, it just breaks my heart when I even think about it.
Oh, I know.
Um,
And and the stuff that's been said about Galen and the horrific things that they say about her and all the stuff that comes out, it has nothing to do with anything. It has nothing to do with what happened that night and the fact that she lost her entire life that night. Her 4 daughters were taken from her, and something needs to happen, I just think that there's a lot of corruption, and I think that if it's not corruption, it's just a lot of negligence, and somebody needs to own up to it and take responsibility.
Right, and sometimes, like I said, sometimes like with Ray Hanish's case, sometimes a change in the officials in the area is the thing that needs to happen for there to be ever any progress or change.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And public attention, look at when that reward money expired, exactly where that reward money would have ended up had public scrutiny not,
exactly.
come down on them.
Absolutely. They took that money. They were going to take that money and put it right back into their coffers.
Of course they were.
And it's just like, it's so crazy to see that nobody's willing to stand up. I have been screaming for well over a year that we need an independent investigator for Flora. We need either a investigative reporter. We need somebody nationally to come in here and cover Flora. I think if they put the heat on nationally with coverage, we would see movement in the case.
Right.
And that's just me.
Absolutely. Well, look at Stephen Smith and the Alex Murdoch case.
Oh God.
That case, probably sadly never would have gotten, like his body was exhumed yesterday. That probably wouldn't have happened had it not been for this larger case that happened,
Exactly. Well, his mother's
in the
been
same
screaming.
area.
Yeah, she's been screaming for it for years.
And no one listened. Same with Karina McClurkin. I wouldn't have known who Karina McClurkin was if it hadn't been for Delphi.
Yep, me either.
Or Ray Hanish or Nicole Bowen.
Exactly. And David Gray is right. People get angry when you tell the truth about corruption in Indiana. When you start talking about Indiana and the corruption in that state, people lose their crap. I can't believe how many people have gone off on me when I start talking about it. But I'm like, your statistics as a state speak for yourself. When you're 48th in the solvability rate of murders in this country, I don't need to say much more.
I believe there's corruption everywhere. I do believe.
Oh, I do.
I believe there's, we saw it in South Carolina with the Alex Murdoch case. And I think anywhere rural, especially, you're going to get, and a lot of people don't even look at it as corruption when they're in it because it's just how business is done to them.
It's been done that way for centuries, especially when you have these large families that and the nepotism where you have, just look at Flora.
It's generational privilege.
You've got the Randall family that are all in law enforcement and fire. We've got Adam Randall was the fire chief. His dad was the state's fire inspector, and they both resigned over Flora.
Right.
So it's not just one place for sure. And you're right. I think it's definitely rural America. We see it a lot because families tend to stay in those locations because they've done it generationally after generation. And that's what you end up with. They don't have large populations, so they have to choose people to run the cities, to run the counties, and to do those jobs. And there does become nepotism.
Right. Well, and a lot of people don't move to areas like that, so usually people have grown up there. So they're so used to the way that everything works where they live that, there's no oversight on it. There's not any attention being brought to it, because, something doesn't seem weird to you when you look at it every day.
No, exactly. And that's the thing the other thing that's so sad to me about Flora. Galen had lived there less than a year.
Yeah.
When that happened. So, you just, I just think that I think what happens with Flora is the more we do talk about it, the more traction the case gets. That the more law enforcement will see that people are ticked
Right.
and want to do something. But I also think that it goes to show that we can make a difference, because there hadn't been coverage on Flora for so long. Even on the anniversaries, it was just hit and miss until last summer, when we kind of got a few of us creators together making noise, and we were finally able to get Faxx out there and, do a story and talk about the reward fund, and all of that. And I take our hats off to all of us that worked on that to try to get it. And there's still a group behind the scenes that are trying desperately to get national attention for Flora. Hey, Brian, how are you? Good to see you.
Well, when the media descends on Carroll County in June for Richard Allen's bond hearing, maybe someone should be advocating for Flora outside of that courthouse where all the media are going to be congregated, and put it in their face so that hand them something that they can look at. I live in the area. I would be there for multiple reasons, but yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. It makes a lot of sense. I've said before that if creators spent more time doing positive things together than the drama crap, think of all the things that we could do. We could move mountains if we all work together.
Or the territorial stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not here to have a big, huge channel and have a big ego and all of that. That's not why I do this.
Right.
It was never what brought me to it. I want to do something that's good for the victims and good for the families. I want them to, feel that they have a voice and that people actually care about their stories. So thanks, Deb.
Sorry about that.
But I wanted to say, I'm glad you brought up Stephen Smith, because I was going to let everybody know that they did exhume his body. And that was reported yesterday. So hopefully this outside autopsy that will be done will hopefully bring about some much needed new information in this case.
I'm amazed at how, I guess I underestimated the attention the Alex Murdoch case got. I watched the trial every day, and I was aware of Stephen's case before. Living in North Carolina, the Alex Murdoch thing is kind of, ever since it happened, I've heard about it, which I kind of avoided it, to be honest, because I was like, ugh, I don't want to be a part of that. But I'm surprised how quickly after the Alex Murdoch trial ended that the Stephen Smith people really resonated with people.
Yeah,
which is surprising considering how long it's been since Stephen's death. But the two people that they named publicly as people of interest, it's hard not to look at them and be like, how did they put themselves there that night? I'm like, how were they not looked at before?
Exactly. But again, you look at that family and how long they've been the law in that county, and I mean the law. Everybody was afraid of them, and they had such a presence. And I think they said that they felt like once this case came to a close, and it closed the way it did, and Alec went to jail, that they felt that now people might come forward and talk about what happened to Stephen in this case. I think it's crazy that it happened 8 miles from the Murdoch estate. I think it's crazy that Alex Murdoch was there at the crime scene, at the scene where Stephen's body was, not that long after he was found. There's just so many things that don't make sense in this case, and it's it screams why people would think that the Murdochs were involved in some way, fashion, or form. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, because we all know that Buster has said unequivocally he had nothing to do with it. So
and I've honestly, I've honestly never gotten that. I know it sounds silly to say vibe from Buster and Murdoch, but it's easy to criticize people when you look at their actions, but I never personally thought that he probably did that. I thought if he had involvement in it, maybe, I don't know, but
yeah, I have no idea. I don't know what his relationship was with Steven. I know they played on the same baseball team, and I know they went to school together. Yeah. So, I don't know what the relationship was. He was, Steven was openly gay.
Right.
So, and for him to be openly gay in a southern county, is not
unapologetically as well, because he was not only, openly gay, but he also had no problem just making people, putting in people's faces. And, there's
this is who I am.
That, that, mentality of, you do whatever you want, just don't put it in my face,
Right.
Or,
for sure.
But as far as Buster was concerned, I always thought anything past the fact that they went to school together and were friends or had played baseball together, none of that was our business unless it goes to why Steven was killed.
No, exactly. Yeah, right. For sure.
Right.
Because you can read anything into that,
Absolutely.
All these people that are coming out and saying that they had a relationship together, they have no idea. They have no way of knowing that unless they have proof somewhere. So yeah, and when you start spreading rumors like that, all you're doing is hurting the case, in my opinion, because if there's no validity to it, that kind of stuff gets legs on social media and people go crazy.
Absolutely. Look at Delphi, when you look at the way people blame, people in the family and things because of their past, whatever.
Yeah. And, quite frankly, from what I've seen of the Murdoch trial and everything, those boys didn't have a chance with parents that were, you know what I mean? I mean, they knew that Paul had a horrific drinking problem, and it just seemed like they facilitated it. Yeah. And I just don't understand. As a parent, I don't think I will ever understand that. So
I couldn't help but actually have compassion for Buster this week when I really thought about the fact that, he might not be a good person. I don't know. But, he lost his mom. He lost his brother. Now he's lost his dad.
Yep.
And then he saw every item from his childhood and home auctioned off and people putting it on TikTok and Instagram and all of these things and taking videos of themselves with the coffee maker that they just got from. Yep. And that's his life. So I did feel bad for him a little bit. I
totally agree with you. The compassion for him is not there for what he lost.
Yeah.
He lost everything and he had no hand in it. He didn't do any of it. He woke up one day and his life had imploded. And that's just, horrific. None of us can imagine what that would be like. And I've had, that's the topic for another show, but, but I'm just saying as a victim and victim families and victims' family members, how social media treats them is unbelievable to me. You look at BTK's daughter and what Carrie Rawson has gone through on social media is unbelievable. Just because her dad was a serial killer doesn't make her an evil person. She shouldn't be talked to and treated the way she is. Just because Richard Allen may turn out to be a horrific murderer doesn't mean that his daughter has anything to do with this, nor his wife,
or parents.
Yeah, or their parents. And it's just insane. I just don't, I will never understand why people treat people that way.
And we've got, Brian Koberger's sisters lost their job, have lost their job, so,
That doesn't deserve to happen. These people had nothing to do with what their brother did. And, they aren't culpable in the crime.
Right.
Just because they are sisters they didn't deserve to lose their livelihood.
Yeah.
It's just terrible. Terrible. Have you heard about the Talon Mosley story?
That was horrible.
I am so sad about that. I wanted to bring that up tonight just because I was going to cover his story the other night and I didn't get it out there. And then before I got his story covered, they found him. And so it's, I was just going to touch on it a little bit tonight. But for those of you who don't know, Talon Mosley was a little boy who had gone missing. His mother had been found deceased, murdered in her apartment, and he was missing. And they began to look for him and felt that his father was probably the person who had him. Well, as it turns out, his father did have him, and his father ended up murdering him and throwing him to the alligators in Florida. They found him in the mouth of an alligator.
Yeah.
And they charged his father with 2 counts of murder. And I just cannot fathom it's like I said to people, I want to show everybody his picture. I tell everybody on my channel that every day it's just more and more of these little kids who are supposed to be protected by those who brought them into this world. And instead of being protected, they end up being horribly killed. But here's the little boy. This was Talon. He was 2 years old, and this is his mother. And she was 20 years old. And they were both killed by his father. So, yeah. It is
not only murdered, but then to be just discarded in that manner, especially.
In that manner, yes. It screams of someone who has absolutely no compassion for human beings, because how can you do that to your own child?
Right.
Your own child.
Yeah, that's not a person that ever needs to be rehabilitated or walking around in society. No.
Yeah, Daisy, you're right. They did find him intact.
Yeah.
Right. And they were able to get him intact, but still, the fact that his dad did that is just beyond the understanding.
And the sad thing is that I'm sure, I know that, there's been some stuff about the motive, but it was probably over something really trivial and something really insignificant and stupid. And he probably just was so pissed off for some reason at that mom that he decided he was going to punish them all.
Yep.
It was probably over something momentary and stupid.
I know. It's just, like I said, it just makes you look at them and you look at their little faces and you're just like, how can someone be so cruel? And it just makes you cringe. But, and I'm glad you brought up Idaho, and I'm glad you brought up the fact that, what's going on up there, because there's a lot of stuff going on with that case. And Brian, they've brought up a lot of interesting information that may end up turning out to be a problem for the prosecution. But I've been following the case pretty closely since it happened as well. And I don't know how you feel about it or what you think, but I think they have a pretty solid case from what we've seen. But it may be difficult in court for them.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, with the documents that came out this week with the disclosure of the internal investigation with one of the officers that was involved, I mean, I feel like a lot of, I've seen people say, oh, this is going to be this huge problem that I've seen, people say this is no big deal. And I lean more along the, it's most likely no big deal. Because, legally prosecutors have to disclose, anything that, could be positive for the defense. So, I mean, this could be something completely unrelated, and just that it's the prosecutor crossing their T's and dotting their I's, which I think is in everyone's best interest.
Oh, I agree. I agree. And I've heard that I've heard a couple of interviews with experts that said that they believe that this was because this was a personnel file, that that's why it was they treated it the way they did. It has absolutely nothing to do with the Idaho case. But I mean, it's still, when you put it out there the way it was, it's going to leave people to write their own narrative about what it may entail and who screwed up what in the Idaho case. And you know, what does that all mean? I think what I found was to be a little bit volatile for them is when they were talking about, with the stuff that was released this week about the DNA, and they were talking about how they sent it to the Idaho crime lab, and then the crime lab couldn't find a match or any DNA on the sheath. So then they sent it to a new upstart lab in Texas.
Right.
And I'm thinking, oh boy, you know, that just opens a huge door for the defense,
Right.
Especially if the Idaho crime lab actually said they couldn't find any DNA. Maybe it's because they don't have the equipment.
That's what my understanding was.
Yeah, some of these states don't have the equipment that it takes in their crime labs because they just don't have the money to update. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But
you know, I think with the information that's come out with Idaho, it's such a contrast to Delphi because, you know, I think that, you know, I think that by the information we have publicly, I feel like they have a really strong case against Brian Koberger. And I personally believe that Brian Koberger acted alone. I know that some people feel like, you know, there could be someone else or whatever, but, you know, then you look at the, you know, Delphi thing where they tried to keep everything from coming out. You know, remember, you know, McClellan didn't even want the PCA released.
right.
And so I mean, if we had the information publicly, like like Idaho's gotten in Delphi, I feel like it would have, it would have cut out so much of the speculation that's been there over the years.
Oh, yeah. You know,
and some of the invasion people have felt from you know, people, you know, like YouTubers or people looking into stuff, you know, contacting family members or, you know, like, you know, look at Tony Klein.
Exactly, for sure. Giggles says, you two work well together. Hope you do more joint lives. I'm up if you are.
Yeah, I love Kristen, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I absolutely love Aspen, so he knows that. But he always makes me laugh and makes me smile. And I always need that after I used to go to It's a Crime Inc. Shame late at night just because I needed, after being in this genre, you just need to laugh a little bit. And he was always being wild and naughty and would make me laugh.
I try to be serious sometimes.
I know. But I just, you know, that, like I said, it's something that you have to do or you absolutely will lose your mind when you're covering these horrific cases and acts every single day. And
it's one thing to laugh and joke, but then, you know, it's a different thing to laugh and joke about something, you know, like, you know, I don't ever laugh or make fun of crimes or victims.
Yeah.
You know, ever, you know, but, you know, people like, I can't believe you can smile or laugh when you're talking about true crime. And I'm like, I'm not being disrespectful or laughing or, you know, joking about a victim or a crime. Ever.
Daisy said we should gloss up. I got gloss somewhere here. Here it is.
I actually have some too.
There we go. Yeah.
So what are you working on now, Kristen?
Huh?
What are you working on now? Just more of, just the cases that...
Just more of cases. I'm just trying to keep this stuff new and fresh. I'm trying to look for some other cases that aren't getting coverage as much because I just think that those voices need to be heard. And there's just so many of them out there. It's just hard. And I get a lot of emails from people that are like, can you cover this case? Can you cover this case? And it's something local, usually, you know, that's got a reason for them. And And there's just so many. And when you're only live, so many times, and
Right.
everybody, one of the first things that I found out as a creator coming into this with the Delphi community was that if you didn't talk about Delphi every day, your viewership would go down. I mean, it was like, no matter what you were covering. Even when I
we've
would
seen
cover,
that on Crime and Shame, we've seen that, absolutely.
yeah, even with
we talk about other cases
Smart and all of that, all the other high profile cases, you could talk about them all you want. If you weren't talking about Delphi, your views would go way down. And I was just like, well, why is that? There's got to be a reason why everybody wants to talk about Delphi.
Right.
Trust
me.
When
I refuse to talk about, I refuse to sit there and rehash something if there's not something to bring the conversation. Like, I know, like Sunny and I both have said, we're not going to talk about Delphi every night if there's nothing to say. And, I'm not knocking anyone for how they do things. I don't see the benefit in rehashing things over and over again.
And that's me. I'm like, if we're going to do something different or look at the case in a different angle, like somebody mentioned tonight that it would be a good idea to have a panel and go back to the beginning and list all of the crazy coincidences and stuff. That would be an awesome show. I would be totally up for doing something like that. But even Maria and True Crime Maria and I have talked about this, and it's just like, I did cover the Stephen Kozai case, Danielle. If you look back on Tuesday night, I covered him on Tuesday night. And I do plan on continuing to cover that case as well.
I don't know that case.
Okay. He is the lawyer in Florida who was killed by plastic surgeon.
Yeah.
So, or as they're accusing him of. But it's like, I've started trying to cover more than one case a night. So like covering a little bit and it, I don't like to just skim the top. There's some of them I would like to really deep dive into the case, and you can't really do that. But then I'm like, well, if I'm only live this amount of time and I can only cover one case, that's still not giving a lot of voice that I want to do. So it's kind of, how do you do this? And how do you find that balance? I want my community to have a voice in how I cover cases. I think that by giving them that voice, it also continues to grow your channel, because once they realize that you do care about what they think, I know there's a lot of creators that they don't care about what the community thinks. This is what they're doing, and this is what they're, about. But I really appreciate everyone who listens to me and comes and listens to me every single time. What about you? What are you covering?
I feel the same way. And a lot of times, is, I refuse to. I don't know if it's really hard for me to half-ass something. So I'm like, there have been cases I don't look into at all, because I just don't have either the time or energy to fully devote to something. And I might share like the someone's missing or something, but if I can't really invest myself into a case, I usually try not to dig into it too much. One, because once I start digging into a case, it's hard for me to cut it off.
It's like Shane just said, Delphi is practically a medical condition I have. For sure with me. I live and die and breathe
Absolutely.
Delphi, and I do Flora. If you guys haven't gotten that from me, then you haven't followed me very long, because Evansdale is right up there with it. Those three cases are like my...
Google. I think Google is 100% thinks I live in Indiana, because the only targeted ads or any things that pop up on my Google are all Indiana based. They'll be like, Indiana weather, Indiana high school sports.
I have learned so much about Indiana. I live right next door in Illinois, and
I don't.
And, and I never knew all the things that I now know about
Same.
Indiana. I could tell you so much about that state.
Yeah.
I know where places are now.
Yeah.
Like last night when I was listening to the Storm Chasers and they were talking about all these counties. I'm like, I know where that is. Oh my gosh. When they were talking about a tornado up by Franklin, I'm like, oh my God, that's just south of Delphi. I mean, it was, it's funny how you become. And I am invested in Indiana now because every time there's a missing child or something, I become, I'm right there.
Oh, speaking of, I don't know if earlier tonight, Jacob Blackford, who was the 14-year-old that's been missing since the 21st, he was found safe for anyone
awesome.
that's listening that didn't know. He was found safe.
I had not heard that.
He'll be going to eventually. He'll be going to a new foster family.
Thank you.
He'll be placed with one, but I spoke to his mom tonight, and
awesome.
he has been found safe.
Awesome. That is wonderful news.
I know. It made me really happy, especially then with Scotty Eaton being found safe as well. That I was like, it's so rare that we have.
We have those kind of outcomes.
Kids have hard roads ahead of them, but they're alive.
And I'm like, especially with Scotty and everything, I was like, we don't get those kind of outcomes very, very often. And
sadly, his case, I'll be honest, his case probably would not have garnered the attention it did had it not been for that T-shirt.
Exactly.
So many people were outraged by that T-shirt that it brought his case to people's attention.
Oh yeah, and, it went viral. People were angry. People were appalled that a family would make a child wear something like that and take pictures of them in it and put it on social media.
But think of how many 13 or 14-year-olds are out there that are missing, that have gone through even more horrific things. There just isn't a picture of it.
Yeah. Fangirl, I'm telling you, I get it. I feel guilty as a creator that I can't watch the creators I love as much as I want to. I have to watch them all on replay. I have to go in when I have a down moment and catch up because I do follow people. And it's like, I know that you can't watch we all have lives. I've said it before. We all have lives outside of YouTube. My family laughs because I spend a lot of time on YouTube and just watching stuff when I'm not creating or working on the channel, and they're like, you don't watch regular TV anymore. You're just always watching YouTube. And I'm like, I really don't watch regular TV much anymore.
Yeah, I definitely don't try to watch I don't watch many creators at all. But I do try to catch certain people. It's not usually live though.
Yeah, there's only a handful that I watch, but I watch a lot of other YouTube. Like I watch a channel called Trek Trendy. I don't know if you've ever seen him, but is he the one that loves NASA?
Yes. Yeah, I watch him.
Yes, I watch him, and I mean, he is like. He's my way of decompressing. Yeah. I love his channel. He's British. I just love everything about him. And he travels, you guys, on trains, planes, and ships. Like, and we're talking luxury.
Yeah.
Luxury.
When I first watched him, I was like, no one told me this was a career option. I was like, why am I was like, true crime is the wrong area of YouTube to be in. I didn't know I could go on luxury trips.
I know. I'm like, I live vicariously through him.
Absolutely.
Because I'm like, I could just picture myself on this
$18,000 flight.
Yeah, exactly. He was on the Orient Express not too long ago, and it's 27,000 American dollars a night to be on that train. And I was like, oh my, but just to look at the wood and I mean the whole ambiance of the experience, but I was still like, that's a lot of money, Aspen. That's a lot of money.
And when you get to a point like he is, he's probably not paying for those trips anymore because HelloFresh or whoever sponsoring him is. But I do the same thing with it's a van lifer named Mav, who does like fishing and outdoor stuff, and camps in his truck. And that's how I unwind. I've watched every single video of his like 20 times.
Are you saying camping in trucks?
Yeah.
I just started watching a guy up in Alaska who
Oh,
camps
really?
in a truck.
Yeah,
And I love him. He built this. It's almost like a little cabin
Yeah.
in the back of his pickup, and
Mhm.
it's amazing. I couldn't believe it. Shane,
Yeah.
I hope that the quitting your job today was
Wow.
a good thing. I hope you find another one quickly. And you're so very welcome. And thank you so very much for your donation.
Thank
I
you.
so appreciate it.
And if you're in the UK, it's late over there.
It
Or
is
Europe.
late over there. I was like,
Thank you.
geez. But yeah, I have a lot of, I watch a couple of the YouTubers I watch, they collect parrots. I like parrots. I like birds.
Really?
So I watch that. So I have a lot of stuff that I do watch that's not true crime, but yeah, it's it is what it is. But
Yeah,
I think
it's important to have stuff to unwind to and to not think about,
Oh, it's called, here it is. Hold on. Oops.
Trek, yeah, TREK, I think.
Yeah. Trek Trendy. It's Trek Trendy. And I just love him. I'm serious, you guys. I just love him.
I like anything that involves travel usually.
He
or
sometimes brings his
like outdoors.
girlfriend on the travels with him.
She's gorgeous.
And she's beautiful. She's sweet.
Mhm.
I just
He's
love
brought his
him.
mom before.
His mom and his dad.
Yeah.
I've seen his dad too. So yeah. Oh, Derek. I didn't know that, my dear. You just
Wow,
quit
Derek,
yours
I'm sorry.
too after 16 years. You take care of yourself, Derek. You hear me?
Yeah.
We're thinking about you. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff, and I don't know. I feel like we're coming down to the wire. We're going to have a few trials here in the next couple of months, and a lot of the cases that we've been following, there's going to be some sort of adjudication with them. I don't look for Delphi to go to trial this year. I will be floored if it does. There is so much discovery in this case, and there'll be so much investigation.
A million pages? Was it 1 million pages? Or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and over 100 witnesses?
Yeah. So I'm
I
just
don't think
like,
that won't happen this year.
No, I don't look for Delphi. And so with that being said, I totally agree with you about, we got to cover other things, and we've got to talk about other stuff. So I'm just moving along and doing that and seeing where things go. But I can always talk about Delphi, and
of course. That's right. Like Sonny and I both have talked privately, because when, really after the Richard Allen arrest, and, we really did kind of feel like there were, nights when you were like, we wanted to do a live, but you're like, there just really wasn't as much to talk about with Delphi. And you don't want to just be like, oh, and so we were like, that's when we really started to really cover other cases. And, coincidentally, it's right when Idaho happened. And so, and that one was when I was in Portugal when Idaho happened. And I was like reading the first 2 days, and I was just reading all of the news things. And when I was in Portugal, and I'm like, I wish I was back home so I could like look into this case. But no, Idaho is always where, Delphi is always where I think, like my main focus and heart is. Yeah,
I think that's where we started. So of course it's gonna be that way, and it's gonna be that way for me until the girls get their final justice. That's
absolutely,
that's just how I feel. I still check in with Becky, every so often, just to make sure to see how she's doing. I worry about her. She's been through so much, physically, emotionally. And so I like to, stay in contact, but at the same time, it's how do you expect them to get through this when it's driving us crazy, waiting and the waiting. And I'm like, and here they, it's really them that it's affecting. So yeah, I don't want to stop talking. I want the girls to become more focused. And I think after Richard Allen was arrested, I've really tried to talk a lot more about the girls and what they've lost and what, things like that about them. Because I think, again, when we're covering these cases, a lot of times creators forget that these aren't just numbers or victims. These are people who had families and loved ones and lives before they became a crime victim. And,
Absolutely.
And I think it's important to remember that. It bothers me that we always remember the murderer or the person who committed the crime's names, but we never can always remember the victims' names,
Right.
especially when there's multiple victims.
Right.
And
and that can happen with Delphi. That's really, that's something that's happens easily because, I think a lot of people, we spent so much time. I'm not saying. Libby and Abby deserve all of the attention, but when, I know that we focus a lot on Libby and Abby, but with like Richard Allen, it is it's hard not to then focus on the like the who is this person now, like that's capable of committing such a horrific crime and why. But no, you're right 100% that the focus should always stay on Libby and Abby and those families. And I know that even after they get their justice, it'll be hard for me to like not check
I will still check in.
Right, both with people that cover the case and with people involved in the case.
Oh, I feel I've made some lifelong friends through this case.
Right.
And I it's what brought us together, and I can't foresee not having that relationship afterwards.
Right. And then there are other, there are other names. Like, I can't wait to not ever have to talk about the name Garrett Kurtz again. They're rotting in prison.
Exactly. I was telling Maria earlier this week when she and I were chatting, it's funny how I haven't heard this name in months, but I haven't heard anything about Chadwell. And, for years, or not years, but for a while, he was the talk. They were just all absolutely positive it was him. It was him,
Right.
and stuff like that. And, talk about a monster.
June 26th, Diamond Eyes. Sorry.
Yeah. June 26th. I was just going to say, June 26th is Richard Allen's next court date.
Or is that Brian Koberger?
You what?
That might be Brian Koberger, sorry. Or Richard Allen's is the 15th, I think, isn't it?
Let me look it up. Hold on.
Now I'm confused myself because I know they're both in June.
Yeah, you're right. Oh, no, that's not what I want. I want... Thank you. Only took a minute to come up. Okay. His next court date is the 15th of June.
15th. Okay, yeah. So yeah, Brian.
June 15th.
Koberger is the one in
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep. June 15th, guys. Is when he's due to be back in court. As you guys know, he has not. Has he entered a plea?
Richard Allen? Yes.
Has not entered did he enter a plea of not guilty?
Richard
Allen
not
entered a plea.
He pled not guilty.
He has
because
pled
they
not
charged. Yeah, that's what. Back at the preliminary hearing, like right away. Because they charged him with and then he pled not guilty, and this is a bond hearing.
Okay, because I thought that this was also supposed to be the preliminary hearing, but I think they're going to move that.
Because I was
When they
questioning
have the
myself the other day.
preliminary hearing is when they're going to present all their evidence that as to why that there needs to be a trial, and whether or not the judge feels that it should be moved on to a trial. And that's what's going to happen on the 26th with Brian Koberger.
Yeah, he pled not guilty.
Okay, so it is preliminary hearing. So it should be very, very interesting to see what happens. I don't think they're going to give him bond. I certainly don't look for that at all in this case. I think I would be shocked if my hat's driving me crazy. Can you tell I don't wear hats? What was I going to say? I would be shocked if they gave this guy bond for what he's been charged with. I don't think he had to. I don't think he deserves to be out. Shane, that tattoo that you're talking about, actually, he had that before the murders of Abby and Libby.
He did.
That tattoo is not of Libby.
Yeah, and I agree.
That's just another one of those things that got circulated.
Yeah,
that is not true. So,
I mean, I would be surprised if anyone actually thinks that Richard Allen could get bond. I mean, I think even Richard Allen knows he's not getting bond, which is why I think they had no problem setting the bond hearing 6 months out.
Diamond Eyes is exactly right. He's safer inside.
Right. So I mean, to me, the thing that I'm interested that's going to happen at that court hearing in June is that we're going to get to hear a little bit of information from the prosecution about why he shouldn't get bond, and that's going to tell us a little bit more than we currently know about.
I hope so. I hope they give us more than just what's in the probable cause. But we just don't know. I definitely think it'll be interesting because I think there will be some character witnesses for on the defense side, and I think it'll be interesting to maybe hear a little bit more about him and who he is and stuff like that, because I'm anxious to hear more about that and about him. His life seems to be so shaded in this veil of just nobody seems to know. And I laugh because people are like, this guy couldn't be BTK.
We don't know.
This guy couldn't be Bridge Guy. And I'm like, are you guys not aware of Dennis Rader and BTK and the fact that he lived two separate lives?
Right.
One of them
worked in Illinois for a long time.
Oh, yes.
Back week. I mean, this guy, we don't know what.
We have no idea what he does on the We
know he likes pool and he works at a CVS.
Exactly. And, I'm here to say you don't sometimes know the person you're sleeping next to. I mean, you're not with them 24/7. You don't know what they're doing on the internet. You don't know what's in their heart of hearts and their dark secrets and all those things. And I think that is what is hard for the average person to accept. Is that, you think of these people as being quote unquote normal. How can they possibly be a murderer by night or whatever? And it happens all the time. We see it with serial killers, especially. They have a way of compartmentalizing that's part of their life and completely acting normal in the other part of their life.
Yep.
So Lisa said she heard that some women say he got a kick out of frightening them. Well, it certainly seems like he has a jokester side to him, only because of how he was dancing around the pool table. That kind of gave into me a little bit about him. That he might be a jokester. He likes to sing.
I've seen a picture of him sitting on his son-in-law's lap, holding his hand, and like
stuff like that. So yeah, I think he it seems like he's kind of a personable guy, which
Or he's awkward and weird. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That is kind of strange, right? But yeah, it's and Shane's right. People refuse to see flaws in loved ones. It's hard to wrap your head around the fact that somebody.
Sorry. We highlight them.
Yeah, in our family, we give them badges. Oh, this is what's wrong with you. Now we know. But anyway. Well, my dear, it's been a great night. It's been a great conversation, but I think I'm going to let you go and hop off of here. And I had a wonderful time. I hope you did too.
Thank you for inviting me.
No, not a problem at all. We need to do it again really soon, not so long in between next time.
I know it's been a while.
It has been a while. And like I said, you guys make sure you go check out Aspen if you haven't. He's wonderful, as you guys can all tell. And I love having him on. Next time we'll need to have Deb come on with us because I love having her, and having her talk with us would be great. So, Fig solves. Wonder what Richard Allen's internet searches consist of. Probably evil things. Probably, Fig, you're probably right. And I would be most interested in to know what he does in the deep dark night when people are sleeping. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, love you guys. And Aspen, you have a great rest of your evening.
Yeah, thank you.
I know it's late where you are. I hope you can get to sleep. And
it's not late for me, but yeah, thank you.
So, okay. But love to you, and talk to you later.
I will talk to you later. Have a good night.
All right. Bye-bye. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Love him to death. Can't say enough about him. And seriously, Deb, would love to have you on. Fig, I would love to have you on again anytime you're available. You just let me know. But yeah, thanks you guys for hanging out with us. It's been great. And I hope you got something out of the discussion tonight. And I hope that you all have a great rest of your weekend. Enjoy the rest of the Final Four tomorrow. And the NCAA championship is on Monday night, and I will be watching. So good night, everyone. Be safe, be kind to one another, and please, if you get a chance, pay it forward. Thank you, guys.